with liberty and justice for all.
Good crowd today. Good morning. Welcome to the June meeting of the Clinton County Council. We'll jump right into our agenda here, beginning as we normally do with the approval of the previous month's meeting minutes.
Janet sent those out to me after the meeting, and I reviewed everything. I think we've made a couple of tweaks, but I didn't see any more mistakes, so I'll move that we approve the May 9th minutes.
Okay, I have a motion by Clark and a second by Jeff to approve the minutes. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. Community Corrections, Brett Barton.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This morning we have 89 clients on our program. We have 1 on CTP, we have 3 juveniles, and 2 on pretrial release. We started our Summer Kids Workshop yesterday for the Mini Police Academy. We had Carl from the Times shadow us, so he might be doing a nice story on us. I'm looking forward to that. We did get word that our grant rewards will be out the last week in July, so anticipating that. And that's really about all I have today. Any questions?
What do your youngsters do in the?
Yesterday we were in circuit court. We also met with Greg Garrison, the security out here, and he gave us his background and everything he does. So a lot of good questions from the kids. I usually like to take them to a court session. There wasn't really anything appropriate for the kids yesterday, so Judge Mueller just had a Q&A with them.
Okay, good.
They got to tour the courtroom.
How many do you have?
Questions. We had 13.
Okay.
What are their ages?
Probably 10 to 14, I'm guessing. Didn't get to all their exact ages, but yeah. From all 4 schools, so that was nice to see too.
Great. Sounds like a good program. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
We had the probation report submitted in your packet showing a 0 month on the May for juvenile detention costs, so strong first half of the year. Okay, moves to new business, and we have with us some folks from the Colfax Library. We have Brenda Kinslow, I think is going to lead that group to talk about a building project bond issue.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for your time this morning. My name is Kristen McClellan. I'm from Ice Miller in Indianapolis. We serve as bond counsel to the Colfax Public Library. We're here today not to ask for any approvals. We'll actually be back next month, but kind of wanted to give you an overview of the library's project. As you may know from some other library approvals in Clinton County, because the library is an appointed board, under state law, they have to have the approval to issue bonds from their fiscal body, which here it would be the county council because of where the majority of the parcels are located. So when the bond approval comes before you, you'll see in the resolution, you're not obligated on the debt. It is truly just an approval of the bond issuance because they're an appointed board. So I'll turn it over to Brenda Kinslow, the director, to explain about the project.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I gave you a little paper to give you a little bit of history on us. We were built in 1917 from a Carnegie grant. Nothing was done to the building until 2006. We added an elevator to it, added an addition, couple restrooms. It was 1 restroom and that was it. Our lease rental would be paid off next year. Things are getting there. The new roof, our roof is 17 years old. It could be replaced. We would like to get automatic doors to make it more handicapped accessible. Our HVAC, it's 18 years old. We'd like to get that replaced with something more efficient. Our statistics, we're open 37 hours a week. We have children's programs, we have adult programs, young adult programs. We offer Wi-Fi. We have people come outside and sit that'll get on our Wi-Fi. COVID, that really bumped up a lot. We also have 2 notaries in the library that we do for free. There's nobody else in Colfax that has the notaries. I've been with the library, it'll be 32 years next year. Started out as a clerk, went to children's librarian, and then director. I have a children's librarian now that's just been there just a little over a year. and another clerk that's been there just about a year. Normally stay. I had 2 girls leave last year that had been there 6 years. One moved away, one got a more hours job. And then my other lady died. You know, she was 90 years old, and she always said she was going to work until she died, and she did. You know, so we're long haulers. But the library is about all there is in Colfax. You know, so we want to keep it up and good and running good and handicapped accessible. One of my board members has a son that has cerebral palsy, and he used to come in, but it is tough for him without automatic doors. You know, so those will help so much. Even my UPS man, he's like, automatic doors would be really nice. So, and Christian said, you know, our debt comes off next year, so we're not raising the taxes. We just kind of like to keep our tax rate as we have. So we would like to come next month and ask a little bit more formal, but just wanted to give you a heads up about Colfax Library.
Great. Thank you for that. Any questions?
No, thank you for the update.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and you'll find very receptive ears up here in terms of keeping your buildings up to date and those kinds of expenses. We have a lot of that ourselves. So we will look forward to then seeing you next month again. Okay, with some more official documents to approve. All right. If you would, anything that we need to consider or that we need to review, if you would get it to the auditor maybe the week prior, then she'll include it in our packets for us to review like the weekend before the meeting.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next up was our group from Kirkland that I don't believe is in the room yet. I'll skip that for now. If they arrive, we'll come back. I'm sorry, I've got this on there.
Thought it was me.
No, I think it's me. So we'll move on to Document Mountain and Kevin Calhoun.
Well, before
Yeah, I'm sorry, Bert. if you-
before they take over a little bit here and make this proposal, I want to give you guys a little bit of how and what and where we are with this. Document Mountain is from Kirkland. And ironically, I came about these gentlemen and this company about 2 years ago, to be honest. I was serving as a helper or a part-time teacher at the Crossing, and it just so happens that Kevin here, who is the president of Document Mountain, made a speech and was part of the guest speaker of Document Mountain and for the Crossing. And at that time, they had an internship in which the school, was using Document Mountain and having students go to that particular school and getting grades for looking at how the businesses ran and what they do, et cetera. And it just so happens my granddaughter was one of those seniors that went through that class and actually got some credits, and thank goodness she graduated, so, you know, I guess she did all right there. I have had the opportunity to work with these people now. It's been an 11-month project in order to bring this proposal to you. As many of you know, our endless supply of paper is on the 4th and 5th floor, and about a year and a half ago, even before we decided to move to the annex, one of my challenges was to see if we can do something with the paper, see if we can do something without having to move all that upstairs. So this project has taken 11 months, and I think we've had maybe 17 various meetings with different department heads trying to figure out details. One of the things that I wanted to accomplish was, one, get rid of the supplies upstairs that we don't need, but at the same time I wanted to create a system in which we could continue to not continue the paperwork flow, that we could, you know, work on a day-to-day basis into the computer and have it, along with having the ability to outside customers, people who come in and want their wedding certificates or, you know, their birth certificates or whatever, they could go online and we would pick up a fee for that. So ironically, as we kind of worked with Kevin and Jason, that's one of the things that they were able to help me guide us into doing just that. So this proposal, and they'll go into a little more detail, is quite involved, obviously, but one of the things that I found out later on, that even Encore itself, or Envoy, who is obviously doing our annexation remodeling and so forth, they had calculated about $375,000 just to move the paperwork from there to somewhere else. And so because of that, hopefully we will have that done and we'll save ourselves that money, in which we won't be paying for that moving back and forth. So at this time, I'll let Kevin and Jason explain the program and we'll go from there.
Mr. Weaver, thank you. Please forgive me, I don't mean to be too dramatic or theatrical, but I'd like to give you 5 pounds of paper. The question is, how much paper, or how much weight is in a banker box? Actually, a better question is, how much weight do you have sitting upstairs on the 4th and 5th floor simply in paper?
Way too much.
Way too much is the answer, exactly. Mr. and Mr. Councilman, you have a paper issue. And for more than a year, as Mr. Weaver alluded to, we've been analyzing a document, we've been analyzing what that paper issue actually is. And over the course of about 17 individual meetings, with multiple conversations with the auditor, the clerk, the treasurer, the commissioner, Mr. Weaver, Mr. Dunn, and the rest of the department heads, we've been assessing the magnitude of your paper issue. And a simple view of this is that Clinton County has more than 4,000 boxes of paper. Now, to put this into perspective, that's 14 million, actually you have 4,300, forgive me, I might have made an error there. You have 4,300 boxes of paper. And right now you have 14 million paper records sitting upstairs and throughout the building. In light of this, I think it would be extremely difficult to argue against the fact that paper records are costly to create and to maintain. They're time-consuming to manage and manipulate. They're very invasive in the amount of space that they take up. As if you look back there, you have a bunch of filing cabinets Jerry has to walk past every single day. They're vulnerable to physical damage. They have no backup associated with them. They're the only copy that you have of those records. There's no audit trail associated with them. You have no clue who's touched them, what they did with them, why they did that task, and they're not accessible. Definitely not accessible from your desktop. The bottom line is paper records cost money, time, and space for the people of Clinton County. The answer to the question is how much weight is being supported in this building. Let me give you a visual. It would be the same as parking a 757 on top of the building. You have more than 200,000 pounds of paper sitting on just the 4th and 5th floor of paper records. That's why, exactly as Mr. Weaver alluded to, is that the engineers estimated to be hundreds of thousands of dollars to simply reinforce the structural integrity of the floors for the building that you were proposing to move into and to move those records. Now, Mr. and Mrs. Councilman, Indiana Code states this: the one main duty of all agencies and local governments is to establish and maintain an active and continuing program for the economic and efficient management of information. Now, while paper might have been the original solution to this, it's been stated that most offices within your building have already gone digital, so there's no more paper being created. But the question is, what do you do with the existing paper that you still have? Luckily for Clinton County, Indiana Code makes a contingency for this. For Indiana Code 5-15-1-1 states that if any employee of the county shall deem it necessary for the purpose of protecting and preserving, as well as reducing space required for storage, may have or cause to have any or all such records copied by any process which correctly or accurately copies the original record. The original record may be destroyed, and the copy will have the same force and effect as the original in a court of law. It goes on to say again in Indiana Code 5-15-5.1-7.b, I love doing this, this is fun going through all that and citing that, states that the administration may make a copy by photography or any other means of any official book, any record, any document, any original paper, any newspaper, any printed book or material. The local government officials shall have shall be permitted such copies to be made. And finally, your court system is weighed in on exactly the same situation. Court system has to maintain multiple different types of records for every case that goes through their system. We have alluded to some were not appropriate for the children as you brought them up, but they still have to maintain those records. And it weighed in, and Trial Rule 77A states that these documents can be stored in the form of paper and in microfilm, but it's interesting that it goes on and says only when authorized for microfilm or electronic. At Document Mountain, we get it. We deal with paper all the time. We understand that physical records can be overwhelming. They can be a challenge in regards to do, and it's very easy to kick the can down the road and wait for the next group to come in and have to deal with that. But we deal with hundreds of organizations to digitally transform thousands of processes so that millions of paper records can be managed more efficiently. The organizations that we work with save time, money, and space. One of the things that we want to do, and I'm not quite sure if we're able to do it or not, the screen is dead. We wanted to show you an example of this, but it's not coming up on the screen.
See if I can get it.
It's where the hand puppets might come in. One of the things that we wanted to show you was a difference. And the difference would be that
Can we get it on these
in the
screens?
past, your department heads have gone out and looked for a digital transformation solution. And they've found vendors, each of them within their own departments, and they found repositories for each of them in their own departments. And had you moved forward with that scenario, what you would have found is that your information would have been spread not only across the country, or the county, the state, potentially the country. What we'd like to show you is a little bit of a difference in regards to one view of the truth. We want to basically bring in the ability to have all of your records in one solution, that the individuals with the right permission would have the ability to go in and find that information from their desktop very, very quickly, as opposed to having to trek upstairs, find the right box, and then come down and do that. Yay or nay? Move along.
Do it on this. But I mean, I see what I'm doing here.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, you guys can see it. All right, I'll be quiet. So I apologize. Jason Hatch is my vice president, and so he's going to kind of go through the presentation for you. Hopefully what this will show is samples from multiple different departments of records that we have digitally transformed, as well as records of antiquity, some basically back to the 1920s, some even back to 1860, and how those digital transformation can preserve those records. You able to go?
Okay, yep, we'll give this a roll. So this is the Document Mountain screen. I'm gonna log in just as trader and kind of give you a view of everything. You guys can see the gold bar and everything south of it. This gives us one view of the truth for the entire county. So our solution is configurable to the point where we can have each of the departments have their own area. So you'll see assessor, the auditor, clerk, treasurer, and so forth. Permissions can be set so that those individuals who are allowed to see that information is set forth appropriately. Those who are not supposed to see that don't even know the folder exists. I am going in as with the skeleton key and get to see everything, and then maybe individuals who do need to see everything, and that's okay. But to know that the permissions are available for us to make sure that those individuals that are not supposed to see certain can even be opened up, where there's public documents can be opened. As well. So to kind of give a brief intro into the view of that, I'm going to go into the clerk's area, and in here we have as many subfolders as you would like. I'm going to go into one just as you would navigate through your documents. And yes, I'm only showing two. And this makes it an easy way like you would do in your normal solution, just to click through, find your document, open it up, and we'll find it. However, with Kevin's analogy of 14 plus million records upstairs, browsing through those would be just as bad as probably going upstairs and trying to find those. So we're going to leverage the opportunity for us to search. And in this scenario where we have the whole cause number and the parts, we can do that. I'll show that search as well, but a lot of people are so used to coming into like search where it's just like, hey. So what we also do with the files is we extract the text from the files and we use that for searching purposes as well. So as in here, I put in plaintiff's name, which is not something we've cataloged the file by, but we're capable of extracting that information and using it. Not possible in the filing cabinet realm or the box realm. We wouldn't be able to do that because that's not the way they're tagged. So it gives us our opportunity to search not only the way they're stored now, but our opportunity to search inside. Let's just bring one of these up so that you guys kind of get an idea of what it's like. So if this was a sample file, I'm just going to roll through that so you guys can kind of see the clarity in which the file is there, what it actually looks like. And then with each of these files, we know that some of these files may be large. We can use here as well to find where that word Nichols, that person's name, is throughout the actual document, or opportunity to actually come in. That kind of gives us that. We can also use the advanced search just so that know that that flexibility is there to maybe if you want something slightly more specific, if you've got the ending case number that you want to find, you can put that specific information in. That's going to pull up the record for us as well. So giving that flexibility to basically come in and locate. Obviously, we're going to work with each of the departments to make sure that these are set up exactly how they would like it. That's the configurability. And then kind of we had had a discussion about how old some files could be. This file was from 7. Get in just to kind of give an idea of what they look like, if they were folded, put in trifold, and we pull them out. Like, are they as visible? Are they as clear as if they were in front of us? Because that's our goal. And kind of show. Kind of see a little bit of that, where that bit of darkness. But highlights are pretty cool to see these from 1864 and actually have them.
The handwriting is
Yes.
beautiful
Yes.
at that point in time. Actually legible, mine's horrible.
Kind of brings me to questions you have on that, or specifically on the solution, if there are any.
It's great.
Kind of a brief overview.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Great.
So with no more questions, actually, as you kind of look at this, you have to say, great, Kevin, you've got 4,300 boxes. You want to digitize them. You want to bring them into this within your packet of information. I've put kind of the cost breakout of this. The natural question is, what's the investment for this project going to look like? On average, it's about 12 cents per page or per image to digitize those records. To put that into perspective, it's a little less than 1.8 million. Not that you can say a little less and 1.8 million in the same breath, but that's basically what it is. Now, a good follow-up question to this is this a good investment? Is this a good value? When we first started, we did an analysis of other vendors' proposals to Clinton County, specifically to the courts, to the clerk's department. We exactly the same services, line by line, went through that. We saw that we saved Clinton County, or will save Clinton County, $150,000 just in that one department itself. That's a 35% savings. To take this a little bit farther and to extrapolate it out in regards to what the state of Indiana would actually provide, if you were to take this to the state of Indiana and ask them to digitize it in their imaging and microfilm lab, they would charge you 40 cents per page, which is a 75% savings in regards to what we would provide for you. The caveat would be is that their max, they'd only do 10 boxes for you. So they would not have a solution for you at all to be able to help you. And just to put this a little bit farther and show that you guys are not pioneering this, same investment was actually just made by your neighbors to the north, Howard County. Howard County had a situation where they were storing their court records in the basement of their building. A employee thought it would be great to leave the water running in a sink. Over the weekend, that water cascaded down over all of their court records, destroying a portion of their court records. Those are now lost, unfortunately. Howard County engaged with us basically to come in and take the rest of the records and digitally transform them. Once they approved that process, they were able to step away. We did all the heavy lifting. We packaged everything up. We named every single box. We made it accessible for them to do that. And we want to take a brief second. Are you able to show this? No, okay. If possible, we'll forward to you a video in regards to the before and after of what's been achieved at Howard County in regards to that. They've taken the space down in their basement and turned it into training rooms for all of their employees. So it's taken this dungy, dreary basement that was full of water and turned it into a very nice meeting space that they're able to use for now training for their employees. So, Mr. and Mrs. Councilman, you have a paper problem. The easiest way to solve this problem is to basically initiate this project. If you were to do that, what it would look like is, again, just as in Howard County, simply by initiating the project, that was all the work that you folks would have to do. We would do all the heavy lifting from there. We would take all of your boxes, we would then label them, we would number them, we would create a range of the information that is inside that box and the types of records that are inside that box. That information would go into what's called a chain of custody document. That chain of custody document would be an agreement between Clinton County and Document Mountain. So if you were to say, I need Jim Smith's records, we'd very quickly be able to see where Jim Smith's records is in box 43. We would pick that record up, we would digitize that for you and make it available for you. Your individuals will no longer have to basically go and trek up to the 5th floor, find records, and pull that down. Once they're digitized, they're in Document Mountain, they're always going to be accessible for your desktop. But the extension of that process is that we would then prep all of those records. We would remove paper clips, staples, whatever would destroy a scanner. We would do that in a secure environment. We would then scan all of those records, digitally transforming them. We would take that digital transformation, run it through a process called optical character recognition, basically a fancy word for saying every single computer-generated word would be searchable. So if you typed in the word Quick Brown Fox, every instance of Quick Brown and Fox would show up. And then we would name those. We would give them specific index values, as Jason alluded to, in regards to, was it a cause number, was it date of birth, was it last name, first name? Those are all dependent on the department themselves. And then all of that information would be stored in the only Tier 4 Plus data center in the United States. It actually writes the security standards for all other data centers across the United States. That information then would be backed up nightly to St. Louis. And so your information now goes from not having any redundancy, not having any security in regards to the records, taking away the physical threat, to basically being replicated, secure, and accessible. Folks, I appreciate your time. Thank you for your consideration. If there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to.
Kevin, is there, or Commissioner Weaver, is there any costs of disposing this paper in this presentation here?
That is yet to be determined in regards to the final resting place of the paper itself. Honestly, that's a very minuscule portion of what this would be. So it's.
Do people destroy that?
Yes,
Or-
sir.
Oh, do they? Okay.
There's a myriad of options. So one being we can retain the paper for as long as you would like. We can retain the paper for a period of time until you're comfortable with it, and then we can destroy it. So you can, any myriad of that combinations of that based on what you want to have.
Those have been the subject of some of the ongoing discussions because there is a comfort level of, the department has to be really comfortable before letting it be destroyed. So
Correct.
that aspect of it is still somewhat under discussion, but the idea is that we could keep it for a set period of time.
Correct.
To make sure everybody feels comfortable that they can retrieve what they need in the digitized form and then.
We usually see a standard 6 months for people to retain the records, but we also have the state of Illinois has retained records with us for the past 17 years. So that's up to you. That's up to your comfort.
Sure,
level.
okay.
What will not happen is they will not go back up to the 4th floor.
No, we will
So
not bring
we
them back.
eliminate that structural issue that has been growing, and we've been hearing about with more of a sense of an urgency in recent years, so. Yes,
One of the things too that we've found in our meetings is that various departments will have various requirements. So therefore, maybe what the clerk has to keep maybe a longer period of time than what the assessor does, simply keeping copies of checks and so forth. So depending upon which department it is, will also alter, what our requirements are.
And the nice part about the solution is that's actually something that can be put into the solution, that retention period. So if, say, checks or any type of accounting records may be 7 years, that's fine, we can put that in. Then the department head is notified that these are potentially up or beyond their retention period. If they're court records, they can be permanent if you wanted to. We can keep those in there as well.
Question about cursive. I mean, you're talking about the fancy writing, and cursive is kind of, it's very pretty, it's very interesting, but how does does it recognize and be able to search the cursive?
Just about 0%. So, no, it does not, ma'am. There is some technology called ICR, so it's intelligent character recognition.
Okay.
The success rate of that is very low. And just because of handwriting varies so much, that information usually is not searchable itself. It's usually computer-generated text itself.
So how,
So the naming convention would be the best way to say that. So we would take the information that's on, let's just use the court case that was on there, and so we would do the cause number and potentially the individual that was going in front of the courts at that point in time. Those would be how we'd retain it, as well as the date that was on it itself.
just a different method of searching?
Correct.
I was going to ask about, I think you answered, Kevin, that it's not even stored here, is that correct? So there's no more exposure to the courthouse with all this information? It's not stored here, right? It's stored,
Correct. It would still be in Clinton County, but it would be in a secure environment that is no longer putting the weight on the building itself.
okay,
Correct.
okay. Well, I understand, I just was wondering about just more exposure to that. That would be, yeah, that's all.
We talked about the weight up there for years.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And yet you're all comfortable enough to sit below it.
Yes. Maybe not so comfortable.
Not comfortable, okay, fair enough.
you may remember, we talked about this earlier in the year, it was either February or March, after, I think that was our first visit, was back in February, and I had told you then that I knew there would be some offsetting expenses that made this sort of a unique time and opportunity to consider this. This has been, these documents and digitization of records has been on the council's agenda, at least in the periphery of it, since I started on the council in 2007. And it's always been finances that have prevented a comprehensive solution. And so with the fact that we were already going through a bond issuance process, and we were already going through a situation where we were going to have to move those boxes out anyway, this was the moment in time to consider this. The original plans for the annex construction included $250,000 for digitization of records already, so that could come right off the top because it was going to be covered by this. They've already referenced there was several $100,000 just for what we call move management that's also included in this. So between those immediate savings and some other decisions that have been made, we've downsized the scope of the generator, for instance, to do emergency level services only, but not power the building as though it were powered like this. We've been able to bring the cost of that down to cover most of this. It adds a little bit, but we've been able to absorb nearly all of the cost of this. So, I'm strongly in favor of moving. This is something that we've wanted to do for a long time. This seems like the optimal solution. They've gone above and beyond to meet with department heads to make sure everyone feels comfortable with the process, and I'm sure there can be even more meetings if anybody has specific questions to their departments. So I thank you for your time and the explanation there, and I want to make sure everybody's had an opportunity to ask any level of question. Ours are more bigger picture looks. We don't have records per se of our own, but anything that you can think of that you want to ask about.
Alan,
Yes.
are we in any contracts now that we have to pay off or anything like that?
Good question. I think the only one that I can possibly think of, and I know you've spoken to the recorder, we had that issue in last year's budget where we were sharing some cost on some digitization, and I think you felt like you could seamlessly put that together, if I recall.
Correct. So the nice part about this is any work that's been done in the past is not lost. Any investment that's made into digitally transforming records is not lost. Those records can easily be brought into Document Mountain. So we do that all the time, so that's very achievable.
I think, Joe, to answer your question, we had put money in this year's budget, but that was for a one-time expense. There's no ongoing, continuing.
Yeah,
Digitization
obviously, we wanna
contract.
get into something that in 6 months, we owe this amount to him, this
Right.
amount to them.
No, we do not have anything active and ongoing beyond that one that maybe is still in process with the recorder's office, but the recorder and Document Mountain have been in conversation about that.
There's several things I like about this, is that it's a local company, and all of our records would be in the same place, done at the same time, in the same way, so searching would be all, easy to understand for everyone. And the financial situation we're in seems to make it a doable situation.
Couple little other notes. So we're dealing with this separate from the presentation that Envoy will eventually make, and I'll allude to that later, that they're in the process of compiling the bids for the annex construction right now. The deadline for submitting bids from contractors was last week. So that information is going to be coming to us in very short order. We're doing this outside of that because this is outside the scope of construction, but it's related to the same bond issue. So we need to give the commissioners the authority to sign the contract that we've agreed to do the funding, but the funding would be provided through the same bond issue that we're doing for the annex and courthouse projects. So you've seen, and the proposal that Kevin handed out to us today, you had in your packet over the weekend. You've hopefully had a chance to review it, and we had a concept of what the numbers were long ago. Well, the other note I wanted to make is because this is a service, there are different rules on the bid process. If it were to build something, or if it was a hard materials, you have to go through a bidding process that is different than if it's a service. And so that's why you may wonder, why do we not have multiple competing bids? You don't have to do that on a service situation. So, Tim.
To go back to Joe's question, we do have an agreement with the maintenance. I don't know if that's a contract or if that's
Okay.
just an annual thing, but we would.
Let's follow up on that. Sometimes those maintenance fees live on like ghosts, so let's follow up on that. Does anybody have any questions? Do you feel comfortable voting on this today? Would you like to have time to consider it? It is a big number. It's not a new idea or a new presentation, but we're to the point where it's time to decide whether we want to move forward officially or not.
I would like to say one thing before you do vote, is that, as Mr. Weaver alluded to, we moved to Clinton County probably 4 or 5 years ago. We were just down at the pyramids. The blessing that we've been able to have is to work with the people of Clinton County and provide opportunities for them. And so, the individuals that are going to be working on your records are Clinton County residents, and it's a huge blessing just being able to hear their stories, their lives, what they've come from, and find stable work and be able to provide for their families. So I thank you for that opportunity.
What is the length of time for this? This looks like a huge job.
It depends on, to be very transparent, it'll depend on the funding. It's something that we could probably get done in a year, or if the funding is spread out over a period of time, we'll match whatever that funding is.
Thank you.
The intent would be that if we have the debt issued later in the summer, we'll be able to pay, for whatever the most expedited timeline is.
What's the motion that we're looking for?
The motion would be to approve the proposal from Document Mountain for the digitization of the fourth floor records in the amount of $1,794,193.
I make that motion.
I'll second.
Have a motion by Jeff and a second by Todd. Last opportunity for questions or clarifications or comments. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you for all the time you've spent in the county and working with the department heads. Commissioner Weaver, thank you for all the time you've put in. It's a lot of time, I know, in this project, so look forward to keep moving with it.
And I'll let you have the Riva paper as a.
Thank you.
Yes, that's what.
I'll do some curls, 5-pound
Yeah.
curls.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, still no Kirkland group, so we'll move on down the list. Stephen Deckard, EMS Director, has a couple of items for us.
We don't have anything from Stephen, do we?
I don't think so.
I didn't see anything. Thanks, Stephen.
So, last commissioner meeting, I presented with the request for the addition of a position, and that's the paramedic program director. The annual salary that I would be requesting is $65,000. To make no impact on our budget this year, we would turn the RN paramedic line item into the program director line item, and it would be no cost to our budget. Next year, of course, we would have to continue on with that, though. You know, Carol asked after the last commissioner meeting to kind of give her a little bit more information on the paramedic program, and we didn't have a chance to connect, but I wanted to offer the Indiana EMS workforce shortage from 2022, and this 15-page report comes from the director of EMS, and it's quite comprehensive, and it shows and illustrates very well the shortage that Indiana is facing with paramedics. And so currently we have about 4,500 active paramedics, but only 1,700 wrote a patient report in 2021. So we're not just competing here in Clinton County for paramedic positions out of 4,500. We're actually only competing for 1,700 throughout the entire state, 92 counties, plus all the hospitals. So with that, it is important that we create our own bullpen, per se, as a sports analogy, of paramedics. And so is it a big investment? Yeah, it's a massive investment of time, massive investment of energy. But this gives us an opportunity to create and mold the paramedics to our standard. And what we're seeing throughout the state is that the focus is on numbers, not quality. And as we continue to expand our protocols and our scope of practice here in Clinton County and be a aggressive, forward-seeking service, we're going to have to address the quality of candidates that are coming through. And so how do we do that? Well, we create our own. And so between myself and Dolores Paul, who I proposed to be the program director, we would work diligently to fill this gap of knowledge that we're seeing in the rural EMS services. Both Dolores and I have critical care and flight experience, enabling us to teach these students to the next level, and hopefully generate Clinton County a handful of high-quality candidates.
Talk about a little bit, if you would, I guess the financial, you and I have talked multiple times about the financial outlook for the program itself. I think originally we thought it could be something of a moneymaker for the county. I think maybe we've dialed back expectations there in terms of it's not so much that it's going to generate a direct profit. It's going to be more on the personnel side that we see the payback.
Yeah, so if you just look at it as, well, here's our tuition, here's what we think we're going to make for how many students we expect to have, and then you take out all the salary for personnel and everything, unfortunately, it's truly going to come out to be very, very close. So I don't foresee us losing money in this investment, but I also don't see us walking away making $100,000 by any means. I think if we walk away with $10,000 in profit, it's a victory. But when you look at the staffing, so I presented the new schedule rotation several months ago, and one of the things that I highlighted is how much it costs in overtime per provider. And so we're looking at $82,000 in overtime alone to fill one paramedic position, $160 for two, and so on and so forth, right? So if we can create this bullpen per se, and we can have these students that we can pull from and recruit following the program, maybe we are not presented with this shortage for the future. It's a unique opportunity here in Clinton County to create this. If you look at the CAHAP, the Commission on Accredited Healthcare Education Programs, what you'll see is 19 paramedic programs in the state of Indiana. And 17 of those are active in Indiana, and all 17 is a college or a university, not a single county program. Throughout the country, we're talking less than 7%. So what we're trying to create here is, it's not unheard of, but it's unique and it's special. The unfortunate reality is that the hospital-based programs we see are starting to wean themselves out. And so that leaves us with programs like Ivy Tech, for example, has 7 of the 17 or 8 of the 17 programs in the state. And we're just not seeing the return of paramedics for the rise in 911 call volumes, the rise in ambulance services throughout the state, private, county, hospital-based. And so this is just our opportunity to create it within.
Stephen, what makes you think that a county-wide one like this would be better than like Ivy Tech or hospital or anything like that we would keep more people?
So what's nice about us having, so Ivy Tech doesn't have any ambulance services throughout the state. So they have no skin in the game to recruit and retain these students. Right. They of course want the money from tuition for these students, and of course part of that, for being a state institution is, graduation rates of course play into factor. So that's their return, whereas our return is staffing and quality providers within our community. So for me, there's a significant more influence and a significant more burden to ensure that we're producing the highest quality paramedic students at the end of this program, because they're going to be treating you guys, hopefully. Not hopefully, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Never know.
So I think, Dolores and I, we have a true vision for this program that, one of the requirements for the accreditation process is you have to have this statement written in your student manual or someplace, and it is that the program's intention is to produce competent entry-level paramedics. Well, an entry-level paramedic, I'll say myself, 7 years ago, I was a fool versus where I am today. I know significantly more experienced, and we don't want to just create that level. We want the next level. So we want these students coming in with this foundational knowledge on ventilator management, aggressive pharmacology administration, those things that aren't honed in necessarily as a competent entry-level paramedic. But as an advanced service like we are here in Clinton County, we need to make sure that that quality of candidate is coming forth. And so how do we ensure that if we can't influence what other programs are doing, we just have to influence our own?
The other thing, Mike, is that where we're hoping for the payoff is that because their training is going to be done with such close exposure to the Clinton County facilities and personnel and equipment, they're going to get an inside view of it, and they're going to have hopefully a preference for it when they get out that, boy, if I could just stay here, I'd really like that, So that's what we're hoping for. I guess the thing I maybe was trying to set up there was to make, so the request to have this program director is not a new expense without an offsetting revenue. There is a revenue in the form of the tuition of the students that are going to participate in the program. I think maybe what we underestimated at the initial thought of the program was that Stephen could handle that in addition to his other duties, and we've just determined we've got to have a program director that exclusively is concentrating on this. So.
And I know I kind of talked about this in November after I got back from the COAMS accreditation conference, and Todd and Carol weren't on at that time, but we were in this conference room full of deans from universities and college institutions, and it's two people from Clinton County, Indiana, saying, yeah, we're trying to create something special here. And what we quickly learned within those few days we were out there was there's no way to do this successfully part-time. We have to be fully invested, and I cannot continue to do the volume of getting contracts, clinical site agreements, overseeing all of the paperwork associated with the paramedic program. I can't do that and run Clinton County EMS at the same time. So I'm about stretched as thin as possible right now trying to get this program off its feet, and I'm very eager to turn it over to somebody else so that I can focus back in on Clinton County EMS.
You know, Stephen, a
specifically.
question I don't think I've ever asked is, do we have the flexibility to adjust the tuition fee?
We do.
I mean, the fact that we've incurred some additional expenses, can we spread that out over, years, increase over students and over years by increasing that tuition?
Yeah, we can adjust tuition within the market value. I think right now reasonable market value is anywhere from 6,000 to 8,000.
Okay.
I have a couple questions, but I'd like to also just say that I'm really impressed that Clinton County has an EMS director that's looking outward and looking ahead and figuring out how we can solve our workforce, deficit in EMS. And I think it's great that they would learn the way we do things and we want things done. I think that's great. Can you tell me where you would think these students might come from?
Yeah, so hopefully we'll definitely get some EMTs that work for Clinton County today that come into the program, and I would expect a couple of them too. Then outside of that, it's going to be outside agencies and fire departments. So we may see EMTs from surrounding agencies. I know I've talked with Doug Atkinson a little bit about it from Carroll County, and he mentioned that he may have some staff interested. And I know Boone County EMS has mentioned interest as well, talking with Dolores. So I think that we definitely have like a reasonable pull within this area to try and recruit some of those students. And then fire departments, especially like Indianapolis, they've transitioned to fire and EMS, like Carmel, Zionsville, those agencies, they all run paramedic and firefighter credential individuals. So for them, they have to find a place to send their students. So I think we'll have success recruiting throughout this northwest area of Indiana, or north central.
Stephen, would you train somebody that instead of going to Lincoln Tech, or they want to change careers, and they would pay their own fee and come to this?
Yeah, I mean they have to have their EMT before, and we'll have like an entry level exam and everything, kind of like the NCLEX for nursing students. We'll have that, but anybody that wants to change their career to get into EMS, yeah, we absolutely encourage that. We'd love to have them.
Your conversation before with us, you were kind of excited that you thought this could be a kind of a bigger training facility. Why don't you? I think it's smart that you're saying we're not really going to be making a lot of money, but we hope to, let's just limit what we're doing here. But why don't you think it'll be not a moneymaker, but popular?
Well, I think when you look at the classes throughout the state, 10 to 20 students is a reasonable expectation for program size. Why isn't it popular? Well, because nurses make significantly more. And so what do people want to do? They want to go be a nurse, or they want to go be a physician assistant. I don't think we advertise EMS very well. What do you guys think of when you see an ambulance? You're like, it's an ambulance driver. Well, I can't tell you how many times the community says, hey, do you drive the ambulance? Do you ask the police officer if he drives the squad car to get to the scene? No. Do you ask the firefighter if he drives the fire truck? No. So what's the general perception of EMS is very skewed. Nobody asked me what my ventilator settings are on this last critical patient I took care of, right? Nobody asked that because they don't understand it. And that's perfectly fine, because when you look at EMS versus other careers like nursing, we're young. We used to throw people in the back of Hearst and drive them, and it was run by a funeral home director, whereas now we're expecting our providers to provide some of the most aggressive emergency medicine and critical care medicine in this area. So I think it's just this general misconception of what EMS truly is. And yeah.
Some more education's needed.
Yeah, I think public education as well as for EMS too. There's a lot of things to tackle within EMS, not just EMS, healthcare as a whole.
When do you think that the program would kick off?
So Dolores and I are hopeful for a September start date. I think that's very reasonable. October at the latest, but so we got our letter of review approved. So now we have to submit our self-study report, and then we'll have a site visit, which the initial site visit's virtual. So I expect if everything goes well this week, I'll have the self-study report submitted. Okay. And then we heard back within just a couple days after the letter of review application, so I would hope within a couple weeks. There's significantly more documentation with the self-study, but hopefully within a couple weeks, we'll be able to set that site visit up and we'll move forward with the process.
So we got a couple of steps we need to do. One, we need to prove the funding for the position, which we're here to do. Two, we'll have to have the commissioners authorized to hire for the position, which I'm sure will happen. And then three, we've got to have a job description created as part of that process. And I'm not sure, do we connect them with Kent and?
Yep, so.
Or is that already in the works?
It's already in the
Okay,
works. Yep.
okay.
So at the last commissioner meeting, the vote was passed 2-0 for
Okay, okay, I didn't
the
know
position
that.
contingent on the job description. There was one absentee. That's why it was only 2-0, not 3-0.
Okay.
And then Cecily emailed me on Friday the job description. I'm working the truck right now to fill in some gaps, and so I was well over my hours last week, so I took Friday off, and I'm coming in today, so I'll get caught up on those emails and review
Okay.
that job description, and we'll go from there.
Okay, that's great. That's what I wanted to double check, is to make sure we were covering all of those as well. So, so the ask is for the, we call it the paramedic program director position at a salary of $65,000. Is that correct?
Correct. And it would be an exempt position as well. Yep.
I would make that motion.
Okay. A motion by Carol. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mike. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. I think you had one other item, if I remember right.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah. So I can just tell you, hey, like this piece of equipment is super important for us to have. But I don't think that necessarily does it justice. And Kevin said I don't want to be dramatic. Well, I'll be a little dramatic with you because sometimes in healthcare drama ensues. Several months ago, it was near the end of last year, I received a phone call from one of my crew members, and they said, hey, Steven, I've got this really complex case. I can't figure out what's going on with him. Do you mind coming up and intercepting with us? And I said, yeah, sure. So we talked on the phone for a few minutes to try and troubleshoot some basic stuff, and nothing was really adding up. So I ended up intercepting him, met him up at the Mulberry station. Get in the back of the ambulance, and this individual is critically ill. Blood pressure is extremely low. Heart rate's extremely low. We quickly do various interventions. We give medications to increase the heart rate. They don't work. We give medications to increase the blood pressure. Doesn't work. And so it's one of those things you're like, man, we're doing all the right things. Why is it not working? And so I started thinking, hey, but maybe it's this other disease etiology. Let's try this. So I give the medication for that, and nothing happens. And I'm like, man. So we end up, we put the pads on this patient. We start beating the patient's heart for them. And it's still not working very well. And so we've exhausted all of our efforts, and we can't figure out why the patient is in this condition and what is going to be the effective treatment strategy. We get to the hospital, and within minutes, the patient goes into cardiac arrest and dies. And they do labs, and the patient's potassium was greater than 9, is all it read. And so normal range is 3.5 to 5. And anything above 6 can start having abnormal EKG effects. And then ultimately it increases the cardiovascular function of the heart as it continues to go up. And so the lab value, it didn't read past what the patient's value was. It just said greater than sign, 9-0. So we gave the right treatment for it, but we didn't give enough. We didn't expect it to be that high. The ISTAT that I'm requesting for each ambulance, so it's $13,000 per ISTAT, $52,000 total. That device would have told us in Mulberry, sitting on the side of the road, that this patient's potassium was critically high, and we could have treated him more effectively, and maybe potentially prevented him going into cardiac arrest. So dramatic, sure, but it's also, it aligns with my vision of Clinton County EMS. I want us to be an extension of the emergency department. I want us to be an extension of the ICU. I don't want us to just be a load and go transport to the hospital kind of service. This enables us to treat our patients significantly more effective. It also allows us to assess patients' hemoglobin and hematocrit, which is their blood levels, and it will give us the opportunity to expand the blood usage that we're looking at establishing. We're looking to establish blood products here in Clinton County. And if we can successfully do that, this would give us the opportunity to assess patients' hemoglobin in the back of an ambulance and determine whether they need blood products at that time or not. So it is a big ask. It's not lost on me. It's $52,000 that we didn't budget for. but it does give
well,
us a unique
let me
opportunity.
interrupt and I'll add the context. When we got the official notification of the special distribution of income tax dollars, I sent messages to Stephen and to Sheriff Kelly, letting them know that for the jail lit fund and for the public safety fund, that we had some additional monies, and was there anything that was, really pressing or urgent that we could invest those funds in, and was what Stephen came up with, and I'm sure the sheriff has some projects for us too. So that this came prompted, I guess is what I want to say, that I suggested to Stephen that we had some resources available that we might be able to tackle something that we didn't have at budget time. So I don't want to make it seem like Stephen's just coming to us out of the blue in mid-year. He was asked if we had anything that we could tackle here. So we had the distribution for the public safety lit was in excess of $100,000, so we would even still be building the cash balance in the fund, even if we granted Stephen the purchase for this equipment. So there's really no financial reason why we can't say yes, and it continues to upgrade our capability and the service we offer to the citizens of the county.
I have a question. You made a statement about the establishing blood products program. So is this equipment something we're going to need for that?
We don't necessarily need it, but it would be advantageous for us to be able to expand our usage of it.
Okay.
And so, obviously blood products are a precious item, and, you see requests for blood drives frequently, and we don't want to be wasteful at all. So what, Dr. Marcinkowski, our medical director, and I were working with IU to establish a system in which we can kind of trade, and as the blood products near an expiration date, we transition them to a larger hospital where they can then use them. Of course, we have a lot to work out. It's still very early in that process as to whether or not we'll be successful establishing a program like that. But that is what we're working towards. And so when we think like blood product administration, we all think like severely injured patients, right? But medical people need blood products too, whether it's a GI bleed or esophageal varices or anything that just causes their blood levels to be low, cancer too. And so we'll be able to assess this in the field and aggressively resuscitate these patients. Does that answer your question?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, thank you.
I do want to add, I now only know of one ground ambulance service in the state of Indiana that has implemented blood products, and that's down in Indianapolis. And I cannot find any that have iStats. And even throughout the country, iStats, there's not much literature on them pre-hospitally because it's difficult, one, to convince practices to invest in it, and two, we have to go through and get our medical director certified as a lab director, and so there's all these governmental hoops that we have to jump through to be able to successfully use these. And Dr. Marcinkowski and I, having engaged in conversations, we're both eager to tackle this project and make sure that we can successfully implement it. But what we're doing here it's truly special.
And that could only help in recruitment, I would think, as well.
I agree.
Somebody would want to come to a place like that, I would think.
Yeah.
I was excited about this. I really would like to move forward with it, but obviously I didn't have the authority to say yes on my own, so that's why I wanted Stephen to bring it to you today, and if you agree, we could entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion
To approve?
to approve.
Motion by Clark to approve the purchase of the new equipment, second by Carroll. Any last questions? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
I do want to also mention, I kind of alluded to this to Alan on our quick phone call the other day. And, Jeff, when we met a couple months ago, I said, hey, let me put together something that explains what EMS is. Because I can stand up here and I can throw abbreviations at you all day, and you're not going to know what I'm talking about. And that's not fair to you guys. I ended up having a baby, so my time was kind of dedicated to that, right?
You had a baby?
I did. Well, my wife did, right? But
That's good.
Don't open that, Carol.
I was her moral support,
Come on,
right?
no, this.
So, as we find a little bit more stability with our life, and I wrap up the everything with the paramedic program and look to transitioning that to Dolores, I'm going to start working on that, and hopefully by the first budget hearing, I'll have something comprehensive for you guys to kind of look at and understand what we're doing a little bit better.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time.
All right, I see Chip snuck in the door. I'm gonna ask you, I'm gonna wait, I'm gonna do one more thing before I get to you. So Chris Overman with Parkview, we had another issue pop up.
You know,
They've kept you
good
hopping
morning.
over there, Chris.
I don't like coming to you guys, but unfortunate part of the job. So the elevator, it's done. It's kaput. Average life of a commercial elevator is 25 years. We have had a contract with a group for decades. They come out every month, so we have maintained it. But it's 29 years old. Rick says he remembered when they put it in 94. So it's almost 30 years old. We've got our monies out of it. And as Alan and I were talking, it's more of a safety issue than it is a convenience. But I have been working on it. As soon as they told me the panel went out and to get repaired, when it came back, it wouldn't talk to it. Not only are we going to get the elevator back and running, but it'll be up to code because we were grandfathered, obviously, all these years. Mid-America is our contracted company. I had 3 bids. They came in the best, but also it's the company that we currently use, and I thought that'd be a good idea. They came in at $81,925. The flip side of that is a 4-page agreement. Page 3 and 4, a lot of it's new build, but you also have to have electric company come in because they got to be a licensed contractor. Skiles jumped on it. We've used them for decades. The bad part is it depends on the code. He's at around 1,000 would be the great side. Worst case, 5,000. And one of the issues, if there's conduit in the ceiling, we'd have to do a drop ceiling. So that's the one thing on it. Also rushed Corson out to look at the fire side because then we're going to have to get up the fire code. And they came in at $9,931. He came out yesterday and got me the bid immediately. I didn't have a chance to get it to you guys. So we're looking at, can't do the math without 86.9 or somewhere around there. No,
Well, it'd be more than that.
No. Yeah.
Be over 90.
Yeah, 96. I didn't do the math. But anyway, those are the combined 3 that we're looking at. Skiles is on board. And again, theirs will be dependent on the code. Corson's on board, their quote's in, and then Mid-America.
Chris, are we doing a new elevator box? I mean,
I
physical
don't think
box,
they're
or is
going to
it just
box.
the?
I
the
read through it. A
controls?
lot of it is with upgrading. There'll be new, push button panels outside. They'll add fire buttons inside, new lighting. It's not a new box. I don't believe the box is fine. It's everything else
Okay.
that goes along with it.
How are you managing without it?
You'll ask my custodians. They'll tell you. I hear it every week. Having to haul laundry for all those folks down and bring it back up. Because we do door-to-door service. The residents put their laundry basket out, the girls pick it up, take it down, wash it, dry it, fold it, bring it back to their door by the end of
The
the day.
residents are all able to use the stairs?
They are. What we do when I assess people is just like I had a guy come in yesterday. He's going to be downstairs, do the physicality,
I see.
and then all my guys upstairs. And then when we have people that get to a point, we reassess and we may move them downstairs. And I've actually traded guys, had a guy volunteer to go up to bring a guy down. So yeah,
I was picturing you carrying people.
Electronic controls.
I would if I had to. No, it's, my nurse Amy we do
Good.
a quantitative assessment on them when they come to make sure that's one that we actually make them walk stairs to go up and down when they come there to make sure they're capable.
Great, thank you.
So Chris, is this, there's not much mechanical that needs to be replaced on this, right? Is it more electronics?
A lot of it's upgrades, electronics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And you guys, I think I sent it to Alan. I don't know if I got it out to Janet to get to you guys, but if you look at it, it's pretty detailed. I read through it, but I don't understand half of that stuff.
So as I said to Chris, I did think this is a safety issue because this is also, if the EMS comes and the gurney's going in,
Yeah,
they're-
you guys don't want to see that show.
So,
Yeah.
we have on our additional appropriation slate the money that we talked about last month for the boiler for Parkview, and then this came right on the heels of it. Fortunately, I mean, this couldn't have happened if this had to happen. It happened at a time that we had this influx of unexpected money that came in from the special distribution. We have enough money to cover this from that special distribution without dipping into our existing cash balance even. So we can do this with no problem.
Well, I appreciate, you know how I feel about spending tax dollars. I made my first 5 years without having to ask for a dollar more than my budget, but man, But everything
But in
now,
a way, and
I'll
it's
tell you,
kind of a relief, because it's kind of been hanging over our heads that we
Yes.
knew this day was
When is-
coming,
when
and
is
here
it
we've got two
Yeah.
big things out of the way at a time when we had money kind of fall in our lap.
Yeah,
So-
which is convenient.
So I need a motion to approve the repair of the elevator, based on those quotes that Chris indicated.
Not to exceed or something, or just, what he's been quoted, or? Yeah.
Well, maybe we ought to do a not to exceed, because you had a little variance in at least the,
Yeah, at
electric
least
number.
Skiles, and he wished he could give you a better number. but-
97,000.
Yeah, that's probably fair. Not to exceed 97. Is that a motion then, Joe? Do I have a second? Carol?
Sure.
Okay. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. We'll do the official appropriation after your numbers are finalized and we have time to advertise it, but this would be the consensus vote that would allow the commissioners to sign whatever they need to
You're in the
sign.
money, baby. You're in the
So-
money.
And I'll put an email together for Janet with everything once I get it. And like I say, Skiles is only in flux due to code.
Okay.
They won't know. All right, well,
All right,
thank
thank
you
you,
guys so
Chris.
much. Appreciate it.
Something like your phone.
Okay, Chip, Dwayne, representing the town of Kirkland, got a request for us, update and a request for us.
Chip and
Oh, and Dan's here.
Hey,
Okay,
Dan.
right on time. Just
Yeah.
Walk right on up, Dan.
We there's a lot going on. I'm going to talk for two people that you guys know, and that is Mindy and Jay Howley. They wanted to be here, but long story, not going to go there. But their part, they wanted to just kind of thank the council for the big project that we got done with the sidewalk project. And I think everybody here knows how helpful that was to everything we're trying to do in Kirkland. Without that support, that wouldn't have happened. And our job was to carry it out and not miss a beat. And that's what we did as a group and that sort of thing. So the next big step for us, for Kirkland, is the Monon. It was in our plan. We started really getting heavily involved in it just before COVID. So I remember talking to Liz, and Liz said, come on, just be patient. You know, it took us 11 years to get, Colfax figured out and all that. And we had 4 months before she could put the proposal in, but we wanted to get that proposal in. So what we had to do is we had to secure the 3-mile section in Kirkland, and between Steve Reynolds and Dwayne and Jay Howley and Dan and some other people, they secured farmland, donations from everybody, and all 3 miles of Kirkland was secured, which we have, and the map is done. And we've been investing, even after the fact, we've been investing in the project, which all of that goes into matching funds. So we're already digging into that number.
Chip, if I could interrupt,
Yes.
just
Sure.
to make sure that the council is clear, what you're talking about is applying for money to the Next Level Trails grant program.
Yes, that is correct. So Kirkland, so basically what we have the opportunity to do is we have the opportunity to continue the Monon Trail, which is one of the big fours that is really important to the state. From Sheridan has got it brought up to the Boone County line, at least to secure the funding and the mapping. We are bringing it from there through Kirkland, past the park to 421. That is the goal. So we are very much engaged with Boone County, obviously, here. Their liaison, their lead person is driving very hard in this. Her name is Elise. She is close with the governor. Her comment like a couple days ago was, no, we are driving this on our end. So basically, just in general, that's the goal. The first of the 3 proposals is due at August 1st. We took our first proposal, which we didn't have enough matching funds, we knew that going into it, but we wanted to get it in. So with us to be able to get that, we have to have the county's commitment financially, we have to have Community Foundation, and we have to have the town of Kirkland. That was the 3 main keys to DNR when they looked at our first proposal. The Community Foundation has come back and said, we will support you with $40,000. We need 60 from the county, like we did before. We're not trying to go beyond that. I think we can get away with that. And the town committed 30, which they've already spent 10 on surveying and that sort of thing to kind of lock the property in. I can't tell you today exactly how this is going to play out. but we are being aggressive at getting this first proposal in. And my point on that is, like I said before, if we do not get in, we will know what we need to do to improve it. But we're going to try to get it in. But the key really also is that connectivity. And so we have to really drive Boone County to be a part of this first bid if we can. If we can't, Liz and I will figure this out with the team. Are we going to wait or are we going to go through? But we do have to have the commitment from the county. Or it's just not going to, it won't happen. So we've sent the original proposal to, I think, the commissioners in the county to kind of see where we're going with this. So that's what we're here today to ask, and Dwayne's here to answer any questions. Dan can answer any questions on design. It's exciting for the community. It could give us a lot of opportunities for Clinton County, for housing, for other things. So we're excited. We're all working really hard at it. Just, if you got questions, please ask.
Chip, would you talk a little bit about, one of the things I thought was really interesting was the history trail component of it. Would you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that's like in my heart. I keep, like, every meeting we have a design meeting today at 3. It's trying to keep all these things in. I always start with, we got to have this history walk. So the history of Kirkland is well documented. There's a lot of really interesting things. I mean, Lincoln stayed in Kirkland at the end. Not when he was a president, when he was a lawyer, but he still stayed there. Johnny Cash came to, stopped on the way to Indy for a concert and bought, like, somebody noticed who he was. He was with his wife in the soda shop, so he bought everybody ice cream. Those kind of stories are all over Kirkland. We have a Carnegie Library. These are things that we want to let people know that we have. And so that's all of it when you start looking at it is on the trail, our trail. So we can highlight, this is where it was. We can have downtown, a main area, explaining all the different history of Kirkland. Everybody read Dick and Jane, I'm sure, you know the story behind that. So a lot of cool stuff. And we want to make sure that we put that in even with the things that are happening with, companies like Cornerstone, what they support the community and, Dock Mountain, but also the distillery, Travelers Point, all that stuff. Those things are great trailheads. That history is going to be really cool. So
You're applying for the grant level that you're applying for is?
It is the amount?
The amount, yeah.
The amount for Kirkland's section is about 1.2
million.
Yeah, that's about what it is.
To put in context what the ask of the county is.
To us is our.
It's the 60, your 60 is what we're trying to get here to get towards the match. And we have a lot of volunteer hours, a lot of donation of land in our proposal. So we're doing pretty good on our section. I was told 2 days ago, I don't know, Dwayne, if you've heard this, but Boone County is hiring the consultant that they used on the rail trail over on the Lebanon side, which is huge because that's going to be key. And the commissioners and the council they gave us $4,000 to our section, the council, Boone County.
Boone County, yeah.
So they're trying to catch up, and we're trying to help them catch up. So.
I don't know if the rest of the council members remember that, but in 2016, we approved a master bike and pedestrian plan in 2016, and I think, I just pulled it up on my computer, but I think if we went back and referred to that, we would see that we're supposed to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a copy of that?
I do not. Now, I know everybody else in our group that has the administrative.
Yeah, if you just type in Clinton County Master Bike and Pedestrian Plan, it'll come up.
I'll do
It'll
that.
come up. It's a 56-page document.
Okay, more reading.
But it might give you some verbiage for your grant application.
Liz, did you hear that? Was it here?
Yeah, it's referred to in the comprehensive plan as well. We have a copy of our office. We had it in the previous grant application, and we'll pull the verbiage over when I rewrite that once we get everything together.
And by the way, she's a gem. We're very lucky to have her. She did a fantastic job and pulled everything together last time.
Right.
She was a lot of fun to work with.
So I was at a meeting last week with Alan and Commissioner Brewer and Chip and Dan, his brother Dan, and Mindy Job from the Kirkland Council. And this is the first time I've met these gentlemen, and but I've seen for the last 5, 6, I don't know how many years you've been doing what you've been doing, but everybody's noticing Kirkland. And so I was glad to be part of it and to hear people that are visionaries and investors and that type of thing and want to do that in my community. And I loved everything I heard, and I think everything that you're asking is very small from what has to be done. I think the county's little input, I mean, that's a lot of money, but I think for what everybody else is given, this would be our fair share. That's what I'm thinking. I just appreciate what you guys are doing here, really do.
We have an economic development fund, CEDAT, County Economic Development Income Tax Fund. That's what this is for. And rather than just a direct investment, we're leveraging this money 20 times if we could get this grant to be successful. I think that's exactly what that fund is for. If I could get on my soapbox for just a moment, we've spent a tremendous amount of county resources from Frankfurt West, and I think it's important that we not forget that there's an eastern side of the county, and there's some exciting things going on in Kirkland, and that we want to support that too, and encourage and develop that too. So I thank you for coming in and talking today. Dwayne, anything you want to add? I know you've been neck deep in all of the efforts.
Just working with, most of my efforts have been, I gave you the map there, that's the route of Kirkland, that land has been procured, so we're in good shape there. Working with Boone County, they probably have the heaviest lifting to do of anybody. We've been with NDOT and the Boone County Highway Department, and basically the challenges there, either if you look at 38 or 47, they don't have easement rights there. They're landlocked into that. And if you happen to drive towards Sheridan on 38, once it gets into Boone County, you'll see how close the poles they're set to you're almost on top of it. Mm-hmm. So there's some real challenges there, how they are going to navigate the route, but they are committed to doing it. Here's the route at this time. I'll give you another handout. This is a Boone County map. We've been in contact with NDOT, had a meeting with them for about an hour and a half, a Zoom call. And basically, we looked at how do we get from Sheridan to Kirkland. We looked at 38. Don't think that's the best option because of what I just said. We looked at 47, getting it to 421. 421, if we get to 421, we believe south of Kirkland has the same characteristics of 421 north of Kirkland, where they got about a 75-foot easement right to the state of Indiana. So we could get from Kirkland to Michigan Town. We think we could get from Kirkland to 47, but again, 47, there's no easement rights there. The state doesn't have any easement rights, so that's kind of blocked. We looked at the Monon Trail or the Monon Line. I've been negotiating with them for several years. They're extremely difficult to work with at CSX, and that's probably a no-go. In addition to them not owning that much land through there, there's also abandonment issues that a lot of this farmland, this CSX ground has been farmed through for decades now. So what I'm giving you there is probably the most likely route that they are looking at hard to go through some of the country to get from the Boone, Hamilton County line to the Boone, Clinton County line. And that's probably the most likely map there that they're going to go. That's still in flux. Obviously, they're seeking input from the landowners there. They're seeking input from their consultants that they're hiring. But a route like that through the country of the four options is probably, I think everybody agreed, that probably the path of least resistance to connect the two communities. So
what we need to do now is a commitment that we would provide that match if a grant was awarded. There's obviously going to be some continuing issues. If you look at the terminating point of that green line, it ends at what would become Clinton County Road 700 East. And so then the commissioners become involved with issues on county roads. And so, there's some more steps that would have to happen. But at this point, they just need to know about our support for the grant application and providing that match. Any other questions? Dan, you took the trouble to come in. Anything you want to add? No, I think. Okay. Well, with that being said, I'd entertain a motion of the council's opinion here.
I've worked with these gentlemen before, and I would make that motion.
Second. I have a motion that we would support this program with a grant match of $60,000 from I'm going to add to your motion, if you don't mind, Carol, from the CEDAT fund. Mm-hmm. And a second by Jeff for that motion. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you all for coming in. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, I knew we were gonna have a little bit of a heavy lift day today.
Spending money.
Everybody okay? Anybody need a break real quick before we
I
do the
do.
additionals? You wanna take, we'll take a couple of minutes.
I'm gonna have to leave here shortly.
Okay, how long do you have? Like now?
15 minutes.
Okay, let's get through the additionals and then if you leave through the reports.
Okay.
But I'd rather have you here for that part. so you
Okay.
can-
Spending money. Spending money.
I was gonna say, I told him, there's a sign out the goose that laid the golden egg is here.
When are those guys, they're on a timetable, right? When does that have to be presented?
It was in August, the proposal was due in August.
Yeah, they're,
So they presented to the commissioners, but more just as an FYI, the commissioners didn't take any action, so we were kind of setting the table. Now they can go back and say that the money's there.
Hi, Rich, how are you?
I'm not gonna propose anything.
Okay.
There's like, you've got every dollar spent. Day to day.
Yeah, I'm telling you what, I've been
I'm waiting on glass.
I told him,
Glass replacement.
I am. I told him that about 15
Okay.
So
minutes.
it may.
We've got some cash balance. I mean, that's gotta, I mean, if you want to even go over the,
And I'm talking about in the cells, in the jail itself, those glass. That glass is.
You say that's
Yes. Because we had a bid from 2019, or a quote from 2019. And
So-
we're waiting on the final bid. It should be in sometime.
are you going to tell, like, at least what you're looking at, though? Yeah. Okay. So then, if we could work this right, if we could get numbers that we could advertise so that it could be on the additional appropriation list by July.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have it to you before.
Oops, I'm sorry.
I should have that final number on the glass by this week.
Okay. Are you doing any of the electrical and?
There's one HVAC for the new camera system. We've been replacing this portable thing every 3 or 4 months. It just can't handle it. That's like $21,000 to put a permanent air handler in that room. And then kitchen, chemical, wet.
Well, just that when you texted me back, you said you'd rather concentrate on mechanical and electrical, so that's why I wondered.
Not really the electric. I mean, we're just kind of. I hope this is the last thing we're working on now.
Okay.
But the other part of it is glass, and that glass, it's going to be a big chunk of it.
Okay.
The red bar.
I mean, that seems like a project we can't have to do. So if we have to go into the cash balance or dip into something else,
I think we'll have to. I think we'll
Okay.
be able to get that done, and then maybe we can. I can look at some other funds to pay for the air conditioning
Okay.
for that control room for Leah has all the electronics in there and everything else. But I think we can probably dip into something else.
Okay. Okay. All right. All right. Very good.
We'll figure it out.
All right.
We'll cover some of it.
I
Okay.
have something for you.
Yes, sir.
I've been able to try to catch up with you.
Yeah.
We're gonna need some services in August.
Okay.
I figured you, I was counting on you anyway, because you're listed down there.
Oh, you put me on there?
Yeah,
We
we
can
can talk more
we'll get
about
somebody
it.
out there.
Thank you.
Bethany.
I wasn't sure whether
Extension
anybody's
officer.
saying anything or not.
Has been our main organizer, and
Yeah.
That's what
Tell
Carol
me.
said.
and we've got a committee,
Hate to keep making.
different volunteers from all these
Yeah.
entities here.
Just need
and-
some help and.
Yeah, just,
I don't ever have
you
a
know,
sense that
safety,
anybody's opposed to it.
traffic.
Nobody ever wants to just jump in and make the motion.
Well, and the other one.
Well, you
somebody
need
else-
to get it on your jail or
I would have, I thought, I've been making.
staff
Yeah.
You know, so I
calendar
was
as
just waiting
well.
for somebody else, but if he had it, I would have.
Because I'm sure you
It
schedule
needed to be
out.
done.
Yes.
It's like,
This has been an important meeting.
I know.
The big thing, getting ready for next month.
Right, well, this will be after the fair.
well, and I think it's good to remind people in the audience about the, like the master plan for 2016.
Hey, Rich,
Didn't even know that. I didn't
we
even remember
have
that.
like
Yeah,
a traffic
2016
plan
will be approved by the
and that sort of thing. We
city
probably ought
together.
to meet with you.
I'll probably have Eric Blacker get a hold of him.
Yeah,
He does
there
all
you
his
go.
collaboration stuff.
And because Bethany's got it all.
We're just doing the additional appropriations. So that,
Yeah, that'd
and
be
department
great.
reports.
Have Jared get a hold of Bethany and then we'll get out of there.
Storage lockers full of stuff. You know, and each one of them costs $256 a month, so $512, or, yeah, $512.
You okay? Feel better?
I feel a lot better.
something like this in the county? And right now, if we had, I would never find what we're doing.
See, we had done 60,000 for them a few years ago for the sidewalk and the streetscape, and I want to say we did a $60,000 for a $750,000 grant.
Yeah.
And then this one was 60 for 1.2, so really it's, on a percentage basis, a smaller match. But that just looks so neat out there now where they've got that done.
Well,
Yeah, yeah.
I know, I did. This is how much I got left. Went over there and I went, okay.
They really
I'm
have.
taking it.
I will share.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about peppermint. I'll let you. I like butterscotch, but I don't know if I have any.
So,
I was the last one in there.
Okay, I'm going to reconvene the meeting here.
Getting into the good
you want
stuff now.
to ask them to yell out in the hallway?
I think everybody, when they close the door. There we go. Okay.
This is the stuff everybody comes for.
Now I've hidden my agenda. What I do with that? I think we're ready for the additional appropriations. There it is. I got it. Okay. All right. So as I always ask you to do, help me make sure I don't accidentally miss a page or skip over one. Beginning with the county general fund, we have a couple of reimbursements, or a reimbursement from the clerk's office. We got a refund on some office supplies of $148.75. Sheriff's office, we got a $62 medical reimbursement from the Department of Corrections. We got a vehicle repair insurance indemnity check of $195 from the Sheriff's Department. This next one is a legitimate new expense. It's from a request from the commissioners that we need to deal with. $35,000 ask for an additional fee for the HR consultant. We have a baseline HR amount in the budget for the regular ongoing duties of HR, but we do have them working on two special projects that this is what this is to cover. One is, and it was, I don't know if it was referenced or if I was thinking about it, but we are in the midst of doing a salary survey. That we have not done in the last 3 or 4 years. So we're doing a comprehensive salary survey. And then the other one is the complete review and kind of overhaul of our policy handbook and the job descriptions for every position, every employee in the county. So those are pretty big tasks. And so that $35,000 would be from the general fund cash balance to tackle those projects. It'd be one-off, one-time expenses. Then this next one is Chris's ask from last month about the Parkview boiler, the $89,900 that we've talked about and had previously given the consensus vote. So this is the official appropriation. So that's the county general funds of $125,305. From EMS, we've got a couple of indemnity checks for an ambulance that was involved in an accident. We got $5,967.06 on one and $1,520.91 on another for a total of $7,487.97. That would put that money back in the repair line item. Health Department, Rodney, I may have to ask you to speak to a couple of these because I wasn't from reading them and 100% sure what they were, but we've got $1,500 that says needing to cover a training course for 2 new employees. And then we had $3,000 for, it says refunding environmental health. And then we've got $23,000 for contractual staff and STI clinic coordinators. So if you want to speak to any and all of those.
So obviously we have 2 new staff members that are on board and need various types of training and certifications to fulfill their job roles. So
Those are from cash balance, correct? Not from a grant? Those
no,
are from,
yes, those are from general funding.
Yeah.
That's what, yes, cash balance, which I think as of yesterday, for the very first time ever, is just at or over $1 million. So when we got our tax levy in, so that's kind of historic. The refunding, as I told Deanna, we might put a dash in there as we are refunding that environmental line item that we currently pull a lot of our expenses from. Most of our unexpected and general expenses out of the main budget that we have come out of that fund. So what she's saying is we're putting more money in there to refund because we've had unexpected expenses.
Replenishing.
Replenishing, there you go. That's the word I'll have her use from now on, so to clarify that. The contractual staff STI clinic, I spoke to the commissioners last meeting with them about that. Healthy Communities has been doing that, I want to say 2.5 years during the pandemic when they got a Title X grant or funding for starting a whole Title X, which is a family planning clinic. Covers a broad spectrum of different services, including STI testing and STD testing. And I would say even with the 2.5 years, they probably had another year involved with getting that all up and running. So they've been doing it for about 3 years, mostly through the pandemic. We had very limited services prior to the pandemic that we were already doing with STI testing. So with talking with the contractual individual that was doing the Title X work with STI and with Laura at the Healthy Communities and my public health nurse, we tried to see if we could capture the majority of those STI, STD testing services that they had been providing for those 2.5 years. I looked at it as an opportunity for, since our cash balances are where they are, and this is being out of the general fund, so as I explained to the commissioners, I'm coming. Normally I add positions through the beauty of grants, but in this case, this one is actually coming out of the main budget, so I wanted them to be aware of the ask and why. This actually represents a full year's salary, was the figure that I originally was figuring up because I wasn't sure when we were going to put it in place. So, but what that does is cover her contractually to continue those services under our guidance through the what was remaining of the Title X clinic. So it's one of those partnerships we'll have with Healthy Communities at that point.
Okay. Thank you.
Does that explain that?
It does.
Okay.
Thank you.
And any questions anyone would have, I'd be glad to entertain on it.
Okay. Nope, we'll carry on. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, so there, that, for Board of Health, it was a total of $27,500. Highway Department, $25,000 from the local road and street budget. Additional funds needed to purchase the loader that we're currently leasing. The buyout figure on that was a little bigger than the regular payment. Then it'll be ours. Community Corrections, $4,800. This is goes back to that opioid grant funding, and you'll recall that both the county and the city had a slate of expenses that we agreed to spend that money on. Part of that was Community Corrections, which is a county-administered department. The city is giving us their share of that commitment that we're going to put towards Community Corrections. Trex from probation, several of these, I won't read each of them individually, but they total $13,767.35. That's money owed to county probation that was withheld from state tax refunds. So again, that program has been fantastic for probation.
There's also some in there for community corrections.
Yes, yes. We have a couple of user fee funds. The county user fee fund and the county jury fee fund, and that service the courts. And Judge Moeller is asking for $20,000, and those funds have hundreds of thousands in them. $20,000 to be put into his budget for use. You know, the judges are great at trying to use those user fee funds and not have to come back to us and ask for additional general fund dollars. So this is one of those times when they're asking for an additional $20,000. From the surveyor, $244.10. This is a reimbursement that we got for some materials, fabric that wraps around some drainage tile. That'll go into the drain maintenance fund, $244.10. TMA, $400. I spoke with Jada before the meeting because I wasn't sure what TMA is. TMA is a vendor that we've contracted with. They do personal property audits on behalf of the assessor's office. And so if they go out and they audit the personal property, like they came to my farm and they saw that I had put a bin up without a permit and I had personal property that wasn't listed, they would catch that, get it on the tax rolls, and then the tax bill that's due, that subsequently comes due, they get a percentage of. And so Jada's thinking was this was the one of those instances where there had been a finding of some taxes due, and this was their percentage amount. She's going to double check to make sure that's accurate, but that's what we believe it to be. Community corrections, this is what Clark was referencing. Let's see, that total number, $1,096.73. Again, money owed to community corrections that was withheld from state tax refunds through the Trex program. And I believe that is all of the additional appropriations. If there are no questions on any of those, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve?
Okay, I have a motion by Clark and a second by Joe to approve the additional appropriations. All those, I'm sorry, I looked from Jeff. I knew I was going to do
I
that.
wasn't fighting it.
Jeff and Joe, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. We do have, Todd, if I can get you one more minute.
Okay.
We do have a couple of transfers that require our approval. From EMS, $40,000 from the group insurance to the EMS overtime. Stephen referred to the challenges of overtime when we're down with short employees. Also from EMS, $26,637 from paramedic line item to overtime. Central dispatch, $5,000 from the assistant director position to maintenance. And then from the health department, we have $484 from miscellaneous equipment, $1,600 from staff, and $69 from mileage, all going to equipment in the immunizations budget. I entertain a motion to approve those transfers.
So moved.
And now I have a motion by Clark. A second, was that Todd?
Mike.
Mike. A second by Mike. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. I know Todd needs to take off to a big meeting.
Yes.
He's gonna bring some more money to the
Good luck.
community,
Good
so,
luck, Todd.
good luck, yeah.
We're trying. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Okay, that brings us to our monthly reports. Council reports, we do have on the agenda that we want to discuss briefly and quickly guidance for department heads. June begins the budget cycle. It's hard to believe already, but budget cycle for 2024, and we typically try to give as a council some guidance on raises for the coming year. Last year, obviously, we did a big one. We went with the 10%. Inflation has pulled back, but is still running hot. I guess if we're going to try to keep up with the cost of living, we need to be thinking in that 5 to 6% area, I would suggest. But things are a little bit complicated by the fact that we do have the ongoing salaries study and survey. We've been told, we gave them a deadline of hoping to have that information back by September 1. That's somewhat problematic in the sense that the department heads have already had to work on their budgets. They've already had to pick salary numbers. It's already been advertised. We've already had the August budget reading. So, my feeling at this point in time is that there's a very real possibility that salary guidance may be to just try to catch anybody that's really out of whack or become the basis for 25 salary, analysis. I just think it's going to come so late that it's going to be difficult to impact the 24 salary. So with that being said, that would put us in kind of a traditional situation where we need to give guidance on what sort of raises we would add to the existing salary base.
They keep up on an annual basis anyway.
There shouldn't be any big, huge surprises, but every time we do one of those surveys, we always have a few positions, and we can deal with those as one-offs if we get that survey coming back with. But what's making it a little more complex is that we are at the same time reviewing the job descriptions.
Right.
So we may have a position that
Yeah.
has had different duties added to it and needs to be adjusted, So, so I guess I'm telling you, we're going to give some guidance, but we're going to need to be flexible, and we're going to need the department heads to be flexible, and we get that back. I don't know what it's going to say, whether it's going to be anything major or not. My gut feeling is we're going to probably conduct 2024 like we normally do, and that would be the basis for looking at anything in 2025, unless it's something egregious that really needs to be dealt with immediately. So does anybody, I kind of threw out that 5 to 6% area. I think that's what we need to be not lose any purchasing power. Thoughts?
Is that what the department heads have?
I haven't had any interaction. What
Okay.
I know is that the state's revenue projections have been very strong, and so I would expect that that's going to translate to we should have a solid growth in income tax receipts for next year based on their projections, because they use their projections to give us our county distribution. And we also know that, you know, the assessed values have continued to go up, are actually one of the kind of benefits of assessed values going up on the county level. That's always tough for the individual taxpayer, but that's really brought down for the first time ever since the tax cap started. Our tax cap impact went down for the first time ever, which meant we had more money to spend. So I think we're gonna be in probably a 5% revenue growth kind of situation. And the other thing that's really gonna be important for 2024's budget is, you'll recall when we locked in our health insurance premium last year, we did a 2-year lock-in. So we're flat for 2024. So that's big. So I think we could do 6%. I think we would be okay. And I think that would be kind of within what our revenue growth is gonna look like.
I think, excuse me, I'm fighting a sneeze. I think 6% is probably the right number to use, because, you know, I think inflation and everything else, you know, so let's start high. It's not guaranteed anyway. When we go through the budget hearing process, it's when we finalize it, so.
Just given the guidance for advertising purposes at this point, yeah.
Right.
Department heads, I want to ask for feedback. How do you feel about that?
Sheriff here, I think that would be the optimal goal. I think the 10% that was very gracious put people in the right positions. Flip side of that, I think, you know, Stephen talked about it, and we're competing with a lot of other, as a county. State police has kind of skewed the whole picture of things by, I think, 40 plus, so I think it's over 50% raise, pay increase.
Wow.
My fear is that I have, the majority of my officers, the deputies that work for us in that fashion, are under 10 years. You can go from a $60,000 job to a starting position in the 90s. You know, but I know we can't compete. I'm not saying we gotta, hey, let's look at a 40.
Yeah, no.
Get us there. And, you know, I think the 6% has been a fantastic tool for us for this year. Budget-wise, everything else, and I think the 10% kept us in the fight, and I think it should, when we have 25 applicants for position. So, you know, I think we're there. You know, my fear is that agencies like that have just kind of through a branch right into everything we do.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
You're gonna hear that across the state. You're gonna hear, the commissioners and councilmen across the state are gonna see that, because sheriffs are gonna go to their council and say, we need this.
You know the story about the two people that are getting chased by a bear, and they say, I don't have to outrun the bear, I only have to outrun you?
That's
right.
We don't have to outrun the state police, but we do need to outrun some other agencies.
Yes, we do.
You know, so.
But it's gonna be interesting year, to say the least, to see across the state what other sheriff's offices,
Yeah.
where they go to on their pay. So with
Okay,
that,
that's
you know,
good.
But I think 6% is optimal and appreciated.
Thank you. Stephen?
I think I want to echo initially, 10% last year was exceptional. And I'm sure you feel the same way, and Renee feels the same way. It made us competitive again. And, you know, to talk about a 6% raise for next year, I'm excited to hear that ballpark. I understand it's not that's encouraging and exciting to think that not only will we be competitive, but maybe we're outrunning the guy next to us too. My only question is, last year you gave us the guidance with the 10% raise heads to try and limit their overall budget increase to 4%. What are we looking at there? Because
I think we're in a different scenario this year because of that health insurance is a $2 million line item. And so if you're talking about a 5 or 10% increase, that's a lot of money in it. We don't have to worry about that this year. So I just feel like, we're gonna be okay.
Okay. So an expected 6% overall.
Yeah. I guess I'm not telling you to try to keep it. Do what you need to do for your budget, and we're gonna plug in 6% on the salaries.
Okay.
And we'll see where we are. That special distribution was so big for us. I mean, it gave us a cushion, and we spent a fair amount of it with Parkview, but we didn't spend it all, and so that helped go to the cash balance, and we're in pretty good shape. Renee?
I echo what
Okay.
they've already said. I mean, I'm pleased that 6%. I have lots of things that I've talk to the commissioners and council about looking forward for us as well, because we
Mhm.
have to continue to grow now.
Right.
We've been pretty solid, but we have to start growing now as the other agencies have been growing.
Right.
Looking at that.
Which might involve some conversations with our
Correct.
colleagues.
Yes, yes,
Yeah, okay. All right, Rodney, any thoughts?
Well, I did want to concur. In my department, I have, at the time of last year's beginning, 4 single parents that are there. So again, I want to concur that it was very gracious and well-timed for the council to have the 10% last year. It certainly helped with keeping our employees stress-free and intact working their jobs. I will also say, like the sheriff, that the state did a salary survey over the last year here, and they have had huge increases for instance, State Department of Health individuals. So, we're seeing that same pressure on our particular infrastructure, and the idea that much easily they could look to a position at the state that is pushing upward positions. So
Okay.
we're always competing against the private sector as well. So.
That $2 billion surplus is gonna hurt us if the state starts throwing it around. Okay, thank you for that feedback. So Janet and Britt, if you would send an email out to the department heads and let them know 6%.
But Alan, that health insurance, that has stayed flat for how long?
We've
It's been what?
6 years, 6 or 7 years, and it's not been totally flat, but it's been a very minimal increase over that period of time. That's just been unbelievable, and I attribute a lot of that to the health clinic.
Exactly, yes.
We've had great utilization, great buy-in. We've had great preventative maintenance, preventative action,
Yeah.
to keep those big claims.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's hope we can keep it rolling.
Alan?
Yes.
In that email, could we include the fuel rates that were
Yes.
last month?
Yes.
And the health insurance rate this time?
So health insurance rate ought to stay flat.
Right.
So if you know that from last year's budget, or maybe you don't, we'll send it, yeah. Okay.
I think we need to do this line on here.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Financial and budget status.
Yep, I did miss one. And to elaborate on what Stephen is saying, the commissioners have already taken action to lock in next year's fuel at a 35% savings year over year. So that's, I think Jordan had calculated that was going to be a $200 and some thousand savings, which is another reason why I feel so good about where we sit going into this budget cycle. So, okay, Clark catches me here. I did forget one thing. We have the monthly motion that we've received and reviewed the budget status report, the financial statement and budget status report that we like to have for the State Board of Accounts.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion by Clark, second by Jeff, that we had received those from the auditor. All those in favor, raise your right hand. The motion carries 6-0. We'll need to note that Todd had to leave for another meeting. Any other council items? I have one quick thing if no one else has any. I just want to remind everybody that, and you should have received an email about it, but the state called county council meeting, the statewide meeting of all county council members is on Saturday, June 24th, and that agenda looks fantastic. There's going to be some really, really good stuff, and if anybody can go, I'm going to try to make it, but if anybody can get down to that, I would strongly encourage you to go.
I thought it looked good too, but I'll miss it.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about Board of Health, Rodney, and we're gonna talk, there's some TIF stuff, and it's kind of, advanced level, really can dive into some issues that affect councils across the state, so.
Clark and I will be going to the advisory board for the
Mental health?
yeah, the mental health, and I've been receiving some letters of concern about the quality of the
Okay.
services that we're getting right now. So.
As you get into that, I guess the question that I would have it seems, I don't know what the process or procedures are if a county is unsatisfied with their
I'm working on it.
provider, how we change. And I know it's in state code or something.
I'm working on it.
It's not easy.
I know.
Okay, yeah, if you could figure out what that process is, I think we need to at least know it. Okay, commissioner report. I know we have one commissioner in the room. Bert, anything that you have in addition to?
Well, a couple follow-ups. One, I had a meeting Friday with the executive director from Howard Community.
Okay.
And I kind of already dropped the bomb a little bit that we're not happy about certain things that are happening. And fact that we felt like that in January, they made the announcement they were going to get a smaller office, but still have a location here, and that has not happened. And she indicated that, there's a place in Tipton, and I indicated the people that are in need of those services can't go to Tipton, and the majority of those people can't get on a computer and have FaceTime with whoever. Neither one of those two are working for us. So I said, we're not happy with those. I suggested that she set up a meeting with all three of the commissioners so that we could probably go over some of the disconnects. I told her I was aware of 3 people who had fallen off the cliff because they couldn't get medication and it took them a week, and that there's been some real concerns, and so I kind of hit her between the eyes at this point in time, and I think that they're probably going to come back with some follow-up. But you're exactly right. I think that's an issue that we're going to have to contend with. That 170,000 doesn't seem like we're buying much for 170. So
It's 200.
I thought it was
You're too low.
240.
It's 200.
I thought it was 240.
That's for 8 months. That's for 8 months.
I mean, just population-wise, Clinton County, by far has almost probably close to double the population. When Community Howard bails out to go to a smaller county, it just doesn't make sense. And I would say, find out what the buy-in at Tipton is. We're footing a bill for Tipton counties.
Yeah, we need to keep pushing on this.
don't disagree with it all. I'm just letting you know that was somewhat on Friday, and
I'm asking people.
Bert, real quick, Liz had her hand up.
Yeah, not to add to general conversation, but as someone who somebody that I know that's close in my family deals with severe mental health issues, and when things are going badly in our county, he cannot find a counselor available, somebody to get him medication when his medication is running out, and when somebody is spiraling towards suicide and severe depression, their energy levels and their ability to advocate for themselves are at an unbelievable low. And then one of all the services to find, those are the ones that take the most effort and require the most amount of self-motivation. Like, it's no wonder you see death rates that rise. Like, if, speaking as someone who's tried to navigate that to help at times, I can't find my way through it. And so I can't imagine, somebody in that state of mind. It's a need, and it's a growing need, and it's a complex issue, and we could talk for hours about all the things that play into it with different individuals, but the fact of the matter is, there are not practitioners, either those who can prescribe medicine, which are different than those that provide counseling, nor those that provide counseling that are available and have hours and that can be reached. And that's not something one person can do, because when you're on call 24/7, I can only imagine for
Well,
myself it would be
what you're
exhausting.
talking about goes beyond maybe just this issue of the county's mental health provider, but we do play a role, and we do have an important role, and I guess maybe what I want to have come out of this, Bert, is for you to know that we have 2 people on the council that are working on that, and so I think you ought to all work together to have a united front to show how important it is to the county, so, in future meetings.
Jordan and I had a conversation about it as well, and Inwell does provide some services in town, and they have an office out by across from Walmart, so they're providing some, but it's not, they don't have enough.
And the other thing that you've already taken care of, but commissioners at our commissioners meeting obviously recommended or would like to strengthen our EMS the way it was done. Even the director, we voted to have that done, and it's a win-win. We may not, even if we break even, it's a win-win, and we will receive additional traffic just because of that. So it may not be in dollars and cents, but sometimes employees are better than dollars and cents.
Absolutely.
So, we saw that as a home run, to be honest. So obviously, it was 2-0. Josh wasn't there, but knowing he, being a first responder, I can guarantee you he was behind it also.
Yes.
Sure. But you've already agreed to it, so, great.
Yep, thank you. Okay. Any other department heads need, that we haven't covered your issue? Yes.
Hi, everyone. I am, my name is Dr. Grace Mary Gouveia, and I am the archivist for this county. I know I haven't met many of you because I don't normally deal with live people too much. I deal with dead documents and dead people. And I know we have a lot of issues going on with people who are living and people who are here in the county now. But I do want to implore you to think about the history of Clinton County. I am not originally from Clinton County, but I am a historian by trade, and I have worked in a lot of different archives and institutions dealing with history and writing history. And this county has so much historical value in their documents. And many people see the documents as, they look at it as the importance is in the writing, but the document is also important. We have an 1840 election document. Think about that, 1840, all right? To me, I get excited about this. I know not many people do, but I get excited about this. So I would like to we do have an archives here. I don't know if you know that. And in the new building, we will be in the basement, no windows, in the basement, which is where I usually work anyway. But we will have a climate-controlled area. We have 1,200 square foot of space. I would like to see a high-density mobile shelving unit there so that we can keep items of value. And I know Britt has already, the auditor's office has already asked me if they could transfer the last 100 years to the archives. What I do is I care for those documents. I make sure that they do not get too brittle. When they are brittle, I put them into a humidity chamber so that it infuses water back into the document, and they're beautiful. We don't have to worry so much about the 1800s because paper was made with rag, cotton rag. You heard about rag pickers, well, that's what they did. That one, so those are beautiful. A lot of the 1800 documents are in great shape. But it's the 1900 documents, 1890s, 1900s, when they started using wood pulp. Those are the documents that are starting to go, and you see it in the newspapers now. If you pick up even a 1970s, 1980s newspaper, it just starts to crumble. Okay, and so some of these, when they've been folded for 50, 70 years, you can't simply unfold them, and that's what I do. I look at them and I put them in the humidity chamber first before I go through them. And I work with a bunch of ladies. This started back when Sue Markham was the archivist. She worked here for something like 23 years, over 23 years. And in 2000, they started, she and Helen Grove started a program with the library. And they worked with volunteers who took the documents, they read through. Carol asked about that cursive writing. We read through that cursive. You learn to know what that says. Everybody's writing is different. They go through those documents and they do an every person name card. So every person in that document from Clinton County, they make a card for it. And then those are put into a database. If you want to look at the database, it's through the library website, and it's the Clinton County Archive database. And so you can search for your ancestor, whatever was John Smith. You can look through John Smith, and it'll come up with everything that has been entered for John Smith, all the documents that contain John Smith in there. And, you know, we heard Kirkland talking about their historical projects. So I don't want, you know, ours to be forgotten. I heard imaging is good. I started the imaging digitization program when I was at the library. And that was back in the, let's see, I started there at about 2004 or 5. And that was the first one. So I've gone through years of, you know, this is the best way, this is the best way, this is the best way. Microfilming is still the best way. It will last for 500 years, okay, in the right condition. So I hope that what we're doing now with the digitization, they will also do microfilm, because that's still the best way to keep it. The other thing that I ask is that I heard the word destroy. And that scares me, because like I said, I'm a historian. I've worked with documents for years, both as a researcher and a writer and everything else. But I ask that historical documents, at least, we've got them from 1840, at least 100 years be returned to us. We will have space for it. And documents can go through the Indiana State Archives. Now, there they will be boxed up and kind of put away. And I don't know how much care they got or what. It's hard to get information back from them. But we do have an archives here. And I've talked to all the commissioners, and I've asked that we do keep at least 100 years back. Those are historical documents. It's not just the information. And although, you know, we'll have the 1800s digitized, we do have them so that you can look up everybody's name. Computer can't do that. Only humans can do that at that point. It's not up until 1900 or so, the late 1890s, that, you know, typewriters came into constant use. So I do implore you to just remember that. I am here. I do work with old documents. I do repair old documents. And that is my first love. And we have so much history in this county. You would not believe how many counties have lost those documents from fire, from water, from theft even. So our documents that we have, I look at it as a microcosm of the Midwest. We can look at what happened in Indiana, and we can say, okay, this is one case study, but we can say that most of the rural areas and most of the Midwest were very similar to this. So I do ask that you don't destroy all the records. You at least keep the historical records intact, and that they are treated with care. Because I know that when you open a document, if you try to force that document flat, you may not see any cracking, but you've damaged the fibers of that document so that it's more likely to tear later on. So again, humidity chambers to start them unfolding, and then I put them between sheets of blotter paper, and then we dry them out, and they look beautiful. They're pristine when they come out. Does take time, but it does work. So we've gone, the ladies and I, who still come with every Thursday, meet with me, we have gone from the 1840s, and we're into 1913 that we're already working on. And so, you know, they've spent hours. I have one lady who's 89 years old, and she has been working since the inception of the program. And so, you know, they've worked hard to make this program a success. And so we do still get questions. And I don't deal with people normally unless they're asking for something, but I will go through land records. I will, you know, use Ancestry to create a family tree to find out what's happened to somebody. I just had a person walk in, and their brother had found a box from the 1940s, and it was a box full of military documents, and it just had a tag on it that had a name, and it said, you know, had a care of. Well, I figured out that was care of a railroad department. So I took that, I did a family tree, found out who that person was, where they worked, and looked for relatives. Did not find relatives for him, but I did find relatives for his brother, who I think those documents actually belong to. He had never been in the Army, but his brother had. And we did find 2 living relatives for that family. So I was able to give that back to the woman for her to see if she could contact those people and see if they wanted the documents back. You know, we have a lot of 1940s documents that will concern the war, that do deal with the war and what the commissioners were doing that time and everything else. So that's extremely important to the county. So if any of you have any questions, I'm always I'm always willing to answer your questions, but I do want to ask you to just think about those documents and returning. We'll have space for them, and, there'll always be someone to care for them. I work part-time, I'm retired, and thank you for the 10% raise. Being on a fixed income, that was a boon, but, I do it also for the love of the documents. So, that's all I have to say, but I do want you to take that into consideration. Destruction is not always good.
Thank you for, well, first of all, thank
Nice
you
to
for
meet
coming
you.
down and introducing
Yeah, thank you.
yourself. And know that your message is heard, and I want to be clear, I tried to be clear earlier that no decision had been made on what was going to happen on all the ultimate, what's going to happen ultimately with those documents. That's for people who know more about it than we do on the council, so. Any other department heads? I know Sheriff Kelly, I believe you? No?
I
No?
can go over a couple things, it's gonna be quick.
Okay, okay.
The money that, has been allocated or brought to the county, will go to the structure there at the facility. The Corson will have a lot of the work, QPH, and we're waiting on glass, and that's the biggest one, is replacing the glass in the interior of the facility, the security glass. And, and I talked to the councilman earlier, it's doubled since 2019. Hopefully, some of the costs have actually kind of started to go back down a little bit. So, but this week we'll have that glass quote, and I'll provide it to all of you and the council and the commissioners so that they're up to speed. But the projects are the kitchen fire suppression system, which is a hood. It's called a wet system, and it needs replaced and updated. And then the entire fire system at the facility needs replaced, and that carries the price tag around a little over $50,000. So, but I'll get these quotes to you and make sure that they still uphold. As far as date-wise, these were all grabbed in April and in May, and just want to make sure that the companies are good, and I'll get it sent to you before the next meeting in July, and that way you can look at it and kind of help us, and commissioners can sound off on what they think and what they want to see.
Very good.
So,
Be a
but-
great use of that money.
Yeah, it's going to be, it'll be really nice, because the fire suppression system and the fire alarm system, they definitely need replaced. So it'll be great.
All right, well, we look forward to hearing about it then.
All right,
All
as soon
right.
as I get the glass quote, it'll be on your desktop.
Okay, thank you. Rodney?
I'll be quick, like the sheriff, I hope, real quick. I wanted to inform the council, since you also mentioned it in your meeting that's coming up, and I mentioned to the commissioners, with the public health funding that's possibly available to every county in the state, we conducted a retreat last Saturday, no, 2 Saturdays ago, with the Board of Health members. We had about half of our staff members were there, going over what the package would include as far as, the different core services, working with our staff, or our board members to understand where we're at with them and where we would need to go with certain ones. They are discussing that again this weekend, this Saturday, another 4-hour retreat. We'll have both Board of Health members and Healthy Community members board in there to look at not only the core services, but how we can, each agency, if asked to collaborate, to effectively use that money. And as I spoke with the health officers, I'm certain that they will be willing and ready to present any type of strategies, any type of overview of those things with the commissioners and the council, should they elect to look at that and want to review those things.
Okay.
So we're working real hard to take a look at all those things and what would be needed to, take on those, what would be maybe additional services, but more importantly, the additional funding and how we would effectively use it.
Do you feel like we're going to have any kind of a special mid-year budget review / adjustment? I mean, are there things they're expecting us to put in place before the end of this budget year?
Well, again, the first and foremost, of course, I'm always leaning forward over the fence and getting my shirt caught in the barbed wire. So, I was anticipating that if I needed to have 2 budgets this year already by June 30th, I had my boards already meeting to try to help with guidance on the decisions on where that should be.
Okay.
We have till September 1st to make a decision. Actually, it's a default de facto thing, and the idea that if they don't hear from us, that is the decision. That I believe they'll probably cut that off then. There are some ideas that, there's restrictions on if you do any hiring, you have to advertise a little longer than what would be the normal situation for government. I think they're putting a month, for any new positions. But I'm prepared to do what you guys want to do. I will probably be, my anticipation is to get our regular budget done in this week and have it, now that you've given me some final guidance. And then I will start working on that secondary budget with the minimum projected figures that have come out, from the state, just in case we're asked to have that available. As to when you want to implement that, I don't know how that would work. It's the first time
Does that
for it.
decision, who, is that a commissioner vote decision, or does the council have to take action on that decision on what, do you know?
I believe it's the commissioners who
Okay.
do the resolution to start with. I gave them the templated resolution paperwork, which they should have all received through AIC as well. But it's my job to make sure you folks have that in that event. Obviously, we all work hand in hand here together.
Well, I guess I'd like to have us on the record, to have, for the commissioners to consider that, I think there's been plenty of information submitted to the council, we're all comfortable with it. I'd like to have a vote that we would be in favor of enrolling in this program and accepting that state funding, so that the commissioners know that.
Sure.
And then that takes that uncertainty off your plate, and you can just begin budgeting
Sure.
accordingly.
Sure.
So-
And again, I know you have a liaison. I'm going to be working closely with Carol. Part of that is, I've got a manual that we've been going through that breaks everything down, and a lot of it is building, as you have heard from the state, on partnerships in the community.
Well, I'd like to let Carol have the honor of making that motion, if you would like to do so.
It's a health thing, yes, I make that motion that we proceed
Second.
and sign in
That it would be the council's position that we support
the commissioners.
the commissioners enrolling in that state program. So I have a motion by Carol, a second by Joe. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. And I,
Just so you know, I find it interesting, I found out that the head director of Howard Community reached out to Jordan and asked Jordan to support the fact that that would not go through at the state level, that he wanted to be supported to where there wasn't going to be a voice on the board and so forth. So, I find that interesting that he would ask to not have that support. So,
Interesting.
I think that's crazy, really. I think he put his foot in his mouth when he did that. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. You asked me. I can't speak on it without my notes, because it was so in-depth.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
And again, with the commissioners and the council, we're at your behest at any point in this process. If you need any information or any details on any of this, let us know. So.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you very
Rodney,
much.
why
Yes.
would any county say no to this money?
They don't have the capacity to do the work that's required. I mean, there's things that have to be done.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of board of
Okay,
health,
okay.
lots of counties don't have the capacity to do
Gotcha.
it.
Okay.
Well, but and I will address what you're saying. So, we have our own world right here. From what I'm looking at, the funding that's available would provide that capacity, so long as we all work together. Now, I will admit, you hear special a lot. You hear, we want to be thought differently in Clinton County. Our health department's already very active in what is required of us anyway. Discussions with the health officers say that regardless of the funding, everything that's being asked of us is already state code, and what you're really going to find is you're just falling short in your community with providing what's going to be basically mandated or
Yeah.
coded by the state. So I echo your concern with that. I think what's going to be critical is communities that can communicate and work together and have an understanding and a respect for each other to start with. If you're starting behind the 8 ball and you don't have that already, it's going to be hard to meet the deadlines, at least the first year. So.
I think, I know when we were down at the State House, we heard counties, we had a meeting with Dr. Box and several people in the meeting. They didn't want the state to tell them what to do. They're not opting in because they don't want the state to tell them what their health department has to do. But that means there's more money for us.
Yeah.
And that is the truth. For any county that opts out, that money basically becomes reassessed and put out to the other counties. And so if you're in the midst of a circle of counties who all opt in and you're in the middle of that, you're in a situation where you're really going to be challenged to be able to keep staff and to keep your services available. So, but anyway, I appreciate it. And again, we're available for anyone.
Thank you, Rodney. Anybody else? Any other business that needs to come before the council?
Alan, I have one tiny report from Sharp.
Okay.
Can I do
Yes.
that?
Yes, please.
I'm on that group. They received 22 applications for assistance this year, totaling $319,000. 12 of those applications have been approved for a total of $113,000. But there is still a lot of money available if there's people in our county who need help. So
There's a good story, fellas.
it's great.
Get the word out. One last item, just a reminder that the July meeting, we've moved the date from Tuesday to Monday because the ladies at the end of the table who are critical to this meeting functioning are going to be at a auditors conference. So we're going to meet on Monday, the 10th.
What happens at the auditors conference stays at the auditors.
Okay. If there's no other business before the council, I will call the meeting adjourned. Thank you all. Oops, I guess I got one more thing here to sign. No, I don't.
This was just pretty much for us.
Yeah, just kind of let you know where we were standing. I don't know what went in.